So once again, hello everybody. Welcome to Monday. It's the Deer Park. It's the Buddha Center. Off we go. So, short period of bell meditation, like we always do, or wherever you are behind your avatar. Please get into a nice meditation posture. And as I ring the Ching bell, the idea, focus on the sound of the bell. Really get that deep listening going so we can all absorb some Dharma today. You're going to get distracted. When it happens, just gently remind yourself and go back to focusing on the sound of the bell. Then there'll be a pause at the end of the short meditation. I'll do the 3 recitations, and then on with the talk for today. I'll give you a moment, get into a nice meditation posture, and we'll begin at the sound of the bell. I go for refuge to the Buddha, the teacher. I go for refuge to the Dharma, the teaching. I go for refuge to the Sangha, the taught. I take refuge in the Buddha. I take refuge in the Dharma. I take refuge in the Sangha. I have taken refuge in the Buddha. I have taken refuge in the Dharma. I have taken refuge in the Sangha. 3 pure precepts. Cease to do harm. Do only good. Do good for others. Bodhisattva vow. However innumerable all beings are, I vow to lead them all. However inexhaustible my delusions are, I vow to extinguish them all. However immeasurable the Dharma teachings are, I vow to master them all. However endless the Buddha's way is, I vow to follow it completely. Swaha. Thank you for your patience. So, hello everybody. If you're here in the U.S., I hope you had a good 4th of July. And if you're not in the U.S., I hope you had a good weekend besides the 4th of July. So today we're going to talk about 4 words that some of you have heard me say a lot of times. And that's what we do matters. This is not something that you'll find in a sutra. It's not something that's in a Buddhist text somewhere. This is something that came to my mind many years ago and has been with me for a long time. So what we do matters. I say it a lot, I bring it up a lot. What the heck does it all mean? When we take them separately, each of the words, what we do matters, points to an aspect of Buddhist philosophy and practice that will lead us to what the Buddha certainly thought mattered a lot, and that was the alleviation of suffering. Now, I also add in the promotion of human flourishing, because as we're alleviating suffering, we also want to promote people having a better life. So this is why these four words have kind of become, well, not even kind of, they have become a personal mantra for me. Whenever I question an action that I've taken, for example, I will think about what I do matters. When I arrive at a place of great doubt, if I'm thinking, man, where do I go from here? I think about what we do matters. And then when I wonder if the thoughts and actions of one person can make a difference, these are the words that I come back to that act as a guide back to the noble path. What we do matters. What Siddhartha chose to do, hey, that mattered, right? It certainly mattered to us. Even now, 2,500 plus or minus years later, it still matters. What you or I choose to do will matter now, and though we may not even know it, it may not be apparent to us, it will matter even years from now. The ripple effects of our thoughts and our actions will have their causal effect on the future, while they have a causal effect on the moment that we're in, right? Excuse me. Now, but how can we be sure that this is true? Well, we can just look to the thoughts and the actions of other people in history and their causal effects on what was their future and what is now our present moment. This is why we look to history, but we don't live in it. We look to history for lessons, but we live in this moment. So we had to deal with things now, right? From this point on, in this particular talk, I want you to accept this idea that thoughts are just actions of the mind. So from this point on, we can just use the word action rather than thoughts and actions, because that's what thoughts are, right? They're actions that are taking place in our mind. As Buddhists, we're pretty familiar with the story of Siddhartha, right? His awakening, becoming a Buddha, his years of teaching, his death, and how what he did between his birth and death has come to causally condition us now, in this moment. Unfortunately, it isn't only the good or the wholesome actions that matter. This is the opportunity to define matters in the context of this, call it a mantra, if you will. Something matters when it has a causal effect on the moments that come after it. That's how it matters. So since everything has a causal consequence, then everything must matter. Whether it is an act of kindness and generosity, or if it's one of hatred and violence, it will have the effect of causally conditioning acts that follow. So we start out with the first word, what? What? What action is chosen? Make no mistake, there's always a choice. And we've talked about this before. Always a choice. You get to choose. You are responsible for whatever choice you choose to make. Hi, Faye. What you choose, though, is affected by actions that came before it, but you must discern what is the appropriate action to take in any given moment. You have to figure out the what. What action you choose becomes another strand in that causal web, a strand that will continue to affect the actions of others. Then there's we. What we. We accept that no one person, none of us, make choices independent of any outside or even internal influences. Our choices, hey, they're our own. We do make our own choices, but they do arise conditioned by the acts of other people and of other phenomena that goes on around us. So the we in this is a reminder that as a unique individual in the universe, we are not unique, or excuse me, we are, as a unique individual in the universe, we are not unique in the universe. So as an individual, we're unique, but there's a lot of different unique ones like us running around. Like the actions of others impact our choices, then our actions, of course, are going to impact the choices of others. This type of thinking requires us to be mindful so that our actions are chosen with the intent to engender positive, wholesome effects. But what about the use of we? Use of we rather than I. And I will admit, sometimes when I'm thinking about it, when it's just me, right, I think what I do matters. But really, it's what we do matters. The practice of Buddhism can seem like an individual pursuit, right? You kind of sit in meditation often by yourself. You're thinking about Buddhism by yourself. You're practicing, within the midst of your life in your moments, and you're kind of doing it by yourself. Even when you meditate with a physical sangha, you kind of feel like you're doing so alone. And even though there's this causal effect of doing so among others. To use a title of one of Stephen Batchelor's book, we spend a lot of time as Buddhists alone with others. Our individual efforts are meant to transform into social engagement that changes the I to the we. Then there's do. Good word, do. Do is the action. Do meditate. Do act with love and kindness. Do be generous. Do practice deep listening. Do contemplate compassion. Do imagine yourself as that better person. Do your chores. Do your homework. Do what is most effective in the promotion of human flourishing, happiness, health, and harmony for yourself and for others. Do not do what you know will lead to negative, unwholesome effects. Lots of doing there. So you've got to do good, and at the same time, you've got to avoid doing not so good. But we should just always be doing. Right? We're always in the midst of doing, so what we do becomes even more important. Because if we're always doing, then we want to make sure that what we're doing falls into a certain moral and ethical category, if you will. Then matters. What we do matters. Matters is experienced in the effects of what we do. We see what mattered. And as well, we see how the actions of others affect us. So we see that the actions of others matter. It is the experiential verification that actions have consequences, and our intent must always be for those to be wholesome consequences. Because our actions matter. What we do matters. It is a reality that human existence is a collaborative effort. If we don't work together, it just is not going to get done. It is the interdependence and the interconnection that all human beings have with each other that is acting with and acting on causality, creating that web that kind of connects us all together. It is also the interdependence and interconnection that all humans have with all other phenomena in the universe that is acting with and acting on causality. So many things matter. Lots of actions matter. In fact, we can certainly say all actions that happen matter in some way, shape, or form. What we do matters, is a way of thinking that links to a strong, purposeful, wholesome, moral, and ethical character. Acceptance of that truth, along with the reality that wholesome deeds have a greater impact on the alleviation of suffering, is consequential in developing that strong, purposeful, wholesome character. What we do matters can point us to our moral and ethical character that we would like to be, right? Because everything we do matters. We want it to matter in the most wholesome way possible. So that's where our character begins to find itself, right? In a more wholesome disposition. What we do matters is a reality for us because of impermanence. With no phenomena, ourselves included, having permanence, this opens us up again to what we do matters. That means the things we do will have an effect. There's a verse in the Pakaya Sutta, and it's traditionally accepted as teaching on dependent origination or causality. In my experience, when I remind myself of this, it points me back to what we do matters. It reminds me, right? It's kind of like that ritual of intent, if you will. And you probably heard this one before. When this is present, that comes to be. From the arising of this, that arises. When this is absent, that does not come to be. On the cessation of this, that ceases. And usually this verse is offered as a teaching on dependent originality or causality. However, it can do the same for things like impermanence and not self. There is no permanence in any phenomena. Things are impermanent because phenomena are constantly arising and falling away. The things we choose to do always have some sort of impact. They always change some other phenomena. And that is why, excuse me, as practitioners, we've got to strive to take wholesome actions so that wholesome transformations and consequences are more likely. Are they always likely? No. But we know that they're more likely. What we do matters is dependent on impermanence as a causal factor. Because we know that change will happen, we must intentionally perform acts more likely to have wholesome effects. Why? Because what we do matters. And the ideal of what we do matters is of value when we consider the notion of self and this Buddhist ideal of realizing the reality of the not-self. It matters whether we choose loving kindness or hatred, learning or ignorance, doing or procrastinating, or any other choice of actions we may need to make. And it matters because every choice we make not only has those consequences outside of us, but it transforms how we are going to be in the next moment. So it's not only transforming other things outside of us and has consequences, what we do matters also has consequences for us. It matters because every choice we make causes a change. And that is the Dharma of the not-self. There is no denial in Buddhism, though, that there is a self. It is the experiential knowledge that it is a self that is continually being transformed as a result of causal conditioning and impermanence. Acceptance of this Dharma of not-self guides a practitioner's intent to take positive, wholesome actions with the knowledge that it is the best choice for self and for society. So, what we do matters. 4 words. They're great. They're intentional words, right? They're meant to remind us of our path. And right now, in this pandemic situation that we're finding ourselves in right now, I want you to think about these 4 words. What we do matters. All we have to do is look at the news, look at our own experiences, look at the experiences of family and friends to see what we do matters. And it matters wholesome or unwholesome actions. All we have to do is look around, and we can experience the validity of those four words. All right, questions, comments?